This is session 2 review would be what this would be. So session 1 was the flourish, and then there was a session 1 review, and then session 2 was where are we going to get the leads? So lead generate, and now this is our session 2 review. So I had asked for each of you to share with me a short-term strategy as well as a long-term strategy. So I'd like to talk about those, and by the end of this conversation, I want to make certain that you have a 100% certainty that you have a plan in place to succeed, and I want to make certain that you are taking action. So this is not about getting a plan to succeed for the sake of taking a time to devise a plan. This is about understanding what the plan for you is to be, that's going to allow for you to have consistent, predictable income and having it in place. So before we get started, I'm going to start by asking each of you to share with us again your short-term as well as your long-term strategies, and then we're going to go through the workbook from last week, and we're going to have a conversation around that. Before we get started, what questions do you guys have around the subject of lead generation? Hello, Frank. Around the subject of lead generation, or around the subject of your short-term or your long-term lead generation strategies? What questions do you have? Okay, so let's do a round robin, and I'll start. So I will share with you. So now I do have more than one short-term and more than one long-term strategy, which is appropriate as you build your businesses. So I'm going to tell you my most impactful short-term strategy that we're using today and my most impactful long-term strategy that we're using today. In other words, the results. So again, I'm using multiple short-term and long-term. So my most impactful short-term strategy that we're using today is Facebook ads. I'd say for sale by owners is probably a close second to that. My most impactful long-term strategy that we have today is our sphere of influence. And my number 2 would be networking. So I could actually say sphere of influence and networking are sort of the same. I do divide them because for me, the networking is a specific group of people within my sphere of influence. And because the strategy is different, I do separate them. There's a lot of overlap. So for example, I mail to my sphere of influence, I mail to them once a quarter. And the way that I do that is I've got 150 of my A people that I mail to, and I break those into 3 buckets of 50. On month A, I mail 50, month B, 50, month C, 50, month D, I go back to the first 50. So there's a constant, those are just sort of cards that will say, like the one we just did. All right, so that's my long-term and my short-term strategies. I'll dive into what I'm doing a little bit in greater detail for you guys. Let's hear about you first, and then I'm happy to dive into mine a little bit more. So who wants to go first to share your short-term and your long-term strategy? All right, John?
My short-term lead generation plan is to have real estate conversations with 9 people each day that I'm making cold calls with. And the goal is the plan is to make cold calls 3 times a week. So that's and then also to host 3 open houses per month. And then, do you want me to go into my long-term goal now?
Yes, I have some questions about the short term. We'll go into your long term. We'll get back to my questions.
Okay. And then my long-term goal is to host a virtual client appreciation mixer once every 3 months for 18 months and get 40 to 50 people to attend.
Okay, I've got a question about that.
Okay.
You want to guess what my a question is about that?
I don't. I want you to tell me.
Come on, man. Take a guess. It'll be useful.
Okay. You're how do I plan to get 40 to 50 people on each call? No. How do I plan to follow up with?
Who wants to throw out? What would I be curious about of what John shared with us? What would be something? And we're looking at creating our destinies with clarity. What would be something that I might be curious about, or you may be curious about?
How are you going to track everyone? How are you going to get their information?
Here's what I'm curious about, John. Is it 40 or is it 50?
45. No, 50. 50. Yeah, just messing with you. 50.
Here's the thing, man. No. I'd rather hear you say 40 than 40 to 50.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I hear when you say 40 to 50 is I'm just going to get whoever I get and I'm going to be good with it. Rather than we're going to approach this with a plan, and now we know 50. Now we figure out what Johnny said and what you said, which is how are we going to get them and how are we going to track them. But if we don't know where we're going, I'm going to get here's the thing, man. This summer I told my daughter, I said, sweetie, I want to take a vacation with you. We're going to go to Seattle or Los Angeles. That wasn't a choice. That was just like wherever we end up is where we end up. We're gonna drive west. You think we're gonna end up in Seattle or Los Angeles if we have that vagueness with it?
No.
Odds are probably not. The West Coast is a big coast. We may end up in Canada or Mexico or anywhere in between. All right. So let's go back to what your long-term strategy is.
So can I add this caveat? And this was my intent and my thinking was that and get a minimum of 40. Is that more? That was my thinking was get a minimum of 40 to 50 people.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm fine with that. No, not minimum of 40 to 50, a minimum of 40.
Right.
So I'm okay with that.
Before I read it again, I wanted to say minimum.
That's fine. Yeah, and it could be 10. I don't care what the number is.
Mm-hmm.
You follow me on that?
I got you.
So my goal in
saying.
2021 with my sales team is to close 200 transactions as quickly as possible. So there's word games that we can play with ourselves to not confine ourselves, right? Like no matter what, I'm going to get 40 to each of these events, no matter what. And I'll take 120, right? Like that's okay. More is fine. Less, we're going to be committed to not get less. Is that good?
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.